So, if you want to make some money, first you have to understand what money even is. Now, money is not a piece of paper or a coin. You know, those things can represent money, but they're not actually money. And so, money is a metric, the same way that meters and feet are metrics to measure distance. Different currencies like dollars, euros, yen, whatever currency, those are metrics of value. And so, just like meters, they are a metric. And well, most people don't understand this because they're like, well, how can you own a metric? Well, you can own square meters of land. You know, we can own all kinds of metrics. So money as a metric doesn't mean that it cannot be owned or you cannot have some of it. And so that's very important to understand that money is simply a metric of value. And so what then determines something's value? Well, I think everyone has heard of supply and demand. And the ratio of supply and demand is what determines something's value. And well, supply very simply is how much of something there is, whether of a product or of a service. And demand is how many people want that thing and how much do they want it. Because everyone knows that there's a difference between I'm starving and I want food to, you know what, I got everything I want and I would like a chocolate bar. You know, there's a big difference between the demands there, even though in both scenarios you have one person who wants one thing. But if you're starving, your demand for food is a lot higher than if you are well fed. And so demand isn't as simple as, oh, how many people want something. There is also some nuance with how much people want that something and how much do they need it even. And so using these things, we can know that things that are not very valuable have a high supply and a low demand. Like the rocks on a street. Anyone can go and pick them up. So anyone has a supply of rocks on the street. Yet the demand is basically zero, because who wants rocks on the street? Nobody. So of course they're not gonna be valuable. And so if you want something valuable, you need something where there is a low supply comparatively to demand. And that's important. For example, a Lamborghini is much more expensive than some other brands of cars. Yet the demand for Lamborghinis is probably smaller than the demand for Volvos or for, Toyotas. But the fact that there is so little of them makes them so much more valuable. Because all of this is the ratio. So you can have things where there are a lot of them, but it's still valuable because the demand is that much higher. And the same is you can have something where there is very little of something, yet it's not very valuable simply because the demand doesn't match it. Or the demand is lower than the supply. For example, if you were to write your signature on a piece of paper, it might literally be a one of one, but nobody might pay anything for it because the demand doesn't match the supply, even though it's a one of one, right? It should be super valuable. But once again, there is no demand. And so that is very important to understand, that money is simply a metric of value, and that value is simply determined by supply and demand. And that supply and demand is a ratio between those two things. So just because you have something with high demand doesn't mean that it's valuable, and just because you have something that has low supply doesn't mean that it's inherently valuable. And so if you want to make money and you want to give something that is super valuable, you want something that you control the supply of, because then you can always have the supply be lower than the demand, because you control the supply. So if the demand's here, you can keep the supply here. But if the demand lowers, you can just lower the supply. And then you will always have something that is valued, Because value is simply a perception. It is simply perception. There is no inherent value to anything. People have this misunderstanding of they walk into a store and they see two shirts, and one shirt has a brand logo on it and the other one doesn't, and they're like, why is this one with the brand 10 times the price of the one without the brand? And they're like, wow, what a rip-off. They're made of the same materials. But it sounds stupid to a person who understands that all value is simply perception. So the brand is perceived value. And the same is with the materials. You can't say, but the materials have some inherent value. No, they don't. Even the materials are simply the value that we perceive to them by supply and demand. Every material has its own brand, you could think of. Gold has a brand. Wood has a brand. The rocks on the street have a brand. And so when you control the brand of something, you can control the value of something, because you can control how people perceive it, and all value is simply perception. And so the big takeaway is that if you want to make some money, then you need to control the perception of people, and you need to have a product or a service that people perceive to be valuable. It is simply a perception, and you don't need some magical inherent value, because it doesn't exist. There is no inherent value to anything. All value is simply what we perceive. The second thing, if you want to make a bit of money, is to understand opportunity cost. And I have a perfect story for this. I used to be part of a candy business where we simply made candy. We made candy by hand, and then we wrapped it by hand, and we put them in boxes, and then we sold them. Very simple business. And well, let me tell you something. The boxes were not see-through. Nobody could see the actual candy inside. Yet we hand wrapped every single candy. And so when we hand wrapped every single candy, that doubled our work time. So basically our work time consisted of making the candy, and then of course packaging it, and then wrapping it, and then sales. So the wrapping of the candies by hand was literally half the time we spent, yet it provided us 0 sales. Because the customers couldn't even see if it was hand wrapped or not. So it couldn't even influence their decision on whether to buy it or not. And that means that you shouldn't do these things that take up a lot of time when it doesn't actually increase your sales. You should do the things that actually increase sales, that actually give you the bang for the buck, and not just things that make you feel like you're working hard. Because we used hours hand wrapping the candy, we used time and effort, but time and effort doesn't matter. Only the value that you provide matters. And so you have to do only the things that actually give you the results that you want. And this applies to every realm of life. You can't go to the gym and say, I worked super hard, but you did some weird TikTok exercises that you don't actually grow you and don't actually make you stronger. You have to do what gives you the good result that you actually want. But the great news is that opportunity cost is also the reverse. There is a reverse to it. If you do the correct things, like let's say you go to the gym, you are not only improving your health and getting in better shape, that also means that for that hour that you are in the gym, you can't do anything stupid like drinking. And so every time you do something correct, it means that you can't do something wrong, but every time you do something wrong, it means that you can't be doing something right. And if you want to make money, it is super important to focus on these few things that actually get you returns. Those are what you're supposed to focus on, and everything else is simply a waste of time. And back to the point of only value matters. Let's look at an example situation. Let's say you need a new washing machine and you order one. And when it comes to, delivered to you, the delivery guy intentionally chooses the stairs instead of the elevator to get on the top floor penthouse that you own after watching this video. And so the guy says, look, I took the stairs instead of the elevator. It was so much harder and more difficult, and it took so much more time than, taking the elevator. Because I had to carry this washing machine all the way up the stairs. Please give me more money. And you're gonna laugh at them. You're gonna be like, what do you care? What do you care if you took the stairs or the elevator? You simply care that you get the washing machine. And to you, it's even a downside that they took the stairs because it took longer. And so the customer does not care how long it took you or how hard it was for you or how hard you worked. They only care about the value that you provide, which in this example was the washing machine. And so if you are, let's say you're a doctor and you invent a pill that cures 10,000 people a day, and that makes you 1 million a month, and you don't have to work for the rest of your life. If some other doctor cures the exact same disease, but they don't have that pill and they have to do weird things and they have to work 12 hours a day and they cure only one person a day, and then they get paid a lot less, like, once again, it's like, that's fair. Because it doesn't matter how much harder that other doctor works or how much longer they spend at the office. What matters is how much value you provide. And even if you can, with simply a pill, selling a pill, get much more value to the customers, then you deserve to get more. And so you should always focus on providing value. Nothing else truly matters. If you provide value, you will get paid and your customers will be happy. They won't care if it's hard or if it takes long or if it takes a short amount of time or if it's super easy for you. None of that matters. And so if you want to make money, the third thing that I got for you is to understand that only the value that you provide matters. And if you don't remember what value is, look at point 1, supply and demand. And so I hope you learned something about money and business and so on. And stay disciplined, chase your dreams, and have a fantastic day.